Well, hello, fellow Amateur Ham Radio podcast, and welcome to this episode 294 of the ICQ Amateur Ham Radio podcast. This episode is a special episode outside our usual release schedule. We're recording this here at Xenia in Ohio. We've just finished the first day of Dayton Hamvention, and after meeting representatives from Yaesu, Elecraft and FlexRadio, we have announcements here of new hardware, new equipment for your potentially to be purchased for your shack that we really wanted to get to you as quickly as possible. So what we've done is we pulled together these interviews taken place here. They were recorded by Frank, Kilo 4 Foxtrot Hotel Mike, by Chris Howard, Mike 0 TCH, or currently N4 Tango Charlie Hotel, and also by Bill, November 3 Juliet India X-Ray, his first ever live interview, so hopefully guys you enjoy his chat with FlexRadio. So we're just going to move on and get you to these interviews very, very quickly, so you can see and hear about the new rigs that have been mentioned here at Hamvention 2019. Hope you enjoy.
The ICQ Podcast, getting it said for amateur radio.
So we're here at the Dayton Hamvention 2019, day one. I'm joined by Eric, WA6, HHQ. Welcome, Eric.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks for coming down.
Once again, and we've got some really exciting news today. Elecraft have just announced the new K4 transceiver, which looks wonderful. We've got a couple of, I presume these are prototypes, Eric, are they?
Yeah, these are actually pre-production units right now, but they're running production, pre-production software, but almost the final stuff, and we're getting close to bringing it to production now.
Excellent, and this looks like a very built-in radio, so you've got the pan adapter, you've got everything's in kind of one unit. So just talk us through the radio if you can, Eric.
Well, basically the K4 has obviously got a lot of DNA from the K3, our high performance, and the K3S, of course, radios. But we combine the pan adapter capability inside the radio, so no more second box with the P3 like we have with the K3. But we are basically a direct sampling in the core radio, digital signal processed radio. So we're direct sampling at the operating RF. So if you're on 20 meters at 14 megahertz, going directly down to baseband and DSP processing, all the filtering is done in the DSP on the core radio. There's no crystal filters to buy. And it's great performance at the core radio. We actually offer a whole range of options on the radio to bring it up even to higher performance. But you've got capability of doing remote stuff we'll talk about, I guess, in a little bit on this built in, and you've got excellent user interface where you're not just all screen oriented. You've got the ability still to have buttons to comfortably use for common functions. Some of that's redundant, you can do it on the screen too, but you actually have a nice graphic user interface that's easy to follow, and also a nice sort of tactile real radio feel too.
Sure, so it's a touchscreen display. And if I was say a K3 user now and I went to the K4, would this look familiar? Would I have to learn again, or is this going to be a straightforward thing to use for me?
Obviously there'll be some new things, but overall it's got the same logic flow and easy use. We've, if anything, refined it so it's even more, much more easy to use. Anything that we've seen over the last 12 years with the K3 and the K3S that we wanted to improve on the user interface, we've incorporated that into this radio too.
And I can see you've got quite a large display here. So we've got the screen on this monitor. So you've got outputs for that?
Yeah, so out the back of the K4, I gotta be careful, I'm so used to saying K3, I stop myself sometimes. Back of the K4 has an HDMI interface standard, so this is an HDMI monitor. A lot of radios will take their main screen and just duplicate it in a large monitor, and we felt, well, you may want to do that, we'll give you that option too. That's too cluttered sometimes for some people. They just want to see as much pan adapter as they can. So the first unique screen is a totally independent screen from the main screen, so we can duplicate or have just the pan adapter like we're doing here. And if we're, for instance, showing two bands for the two receivers, you can actually have a split screen both places and look at, one receiver and the other one. We have plans to be able to offer other things on the screen here too, but this is the first stuff we're doing. Yeah,
so as you can see, on the screen on the rig, we've got the frequency, etc., and you've just got the pan adapter here. So I guess that's, like I say, configurable. And I believe there's some options, or there are different models available. Perhaps you can take us through the sort of options.
I'll go really quick. K4, the basic radio, is, again, the direct sampling radio, no crystal filters required, 160 through 6 meters, and also has an option for down the road here. We're not going to have it out until next year, a dual band VHF, UHF, 2 meter 440, 430 option. But beyond that, there's not a lot of physical options to add in the radios except to upgrade from one radio to the next. So the next radio up is the K4D, and that adds diversity reception. It adds an additional analog to digital converter and down converter, so you can now have two different antennas coming in, either on the same band and doing diversity, where you're listening to how a signal fades differently on different antenna locations. It can be two dipoles, and one will fade out, and you get the other one, and then the other one will come up. That's very useful for working weak signal stuff. Or listen to two different bands at the same time. You can do that on both the base radio and this one, but with the K4D, you've got your own bandpass filters for both receivers and on different antennas if you want to use optimized antennas for the two receivers at the same time. So that's the K4D, and that's probably the most popular in terms of the radio, that and the base radio. The K4 HD, and we bring that out a little bit after in terms of an add-on. Again, you can upgrade from one to the next. K4 HD covers the extreme cases of when you're contesting with multiple transmitters on the same band at the same location, or on a de-expedition, things like that, or extreme situations like you get in Europe in some cases. That adds, in addition, you don't give away any of the features that you had with the first two, but it adds a K3 style super heterodyne hybrid front end. We convert down from that to a 8 megahertz IF. We have pre-built, already installed crystal filters for a sideband, say, and a CW bandwidth on each of the two receive channels on that. And then we direct sample right off of that, and everything's the same on the back end. The advantage we've got there is that direct sampling method has much more dynamic range even than the old K3 did after its filters. So for other signals that are inside that filter that might be on top of you, this has no problem filtering those out because we've got that stronger DSP. So that's the K4, K4D, K4 HD. And they're modular. You can get the K4 and you want to say, I want to go to a K4D next year, and then maybe eventually a K4 HD because you're doing something more critical. So you've got that ability to do it. And plus it's modular. So like new analog to digital converters come out in 5 years. We can come out with a new direct digital down converter A to D module, and that plugs in on our DSP board.
So it's very modular, that's good. So one of the things that worries me sometimes when you're buying a rig that's new is sometimes there might be certain things that aren't quite right, or the things that get improved over time. So as a customer, am I able to upgrade this, the software on this over time?
Yeah, the software is continually updated by us. We don't charge for updates. That's a critical feature, positive one for us. And we add new features all the time. A lot of times some user input. I mean, people actually make suggestions to us, via the internet and in person. And we take the best of those and incorporate those to new features into the radio.
So I guess that's a simple thing. I guess you plug into your PC and upload it, I guess.
You plug it in actually over the Ethernet. We have Ethernet in the back of these, or USB. And you can basically upload the whole radio. When we put new software versions in, there's multiple computers and processors in here. You don't see that. You just see it automatically all go up to date, but it can be done over the internet.
And I see you've also got a USB connection on the front. Is that for a mouse, keyboard, that sort of thing?
Exactly. We've got in the front and two in the back USB-A connections, so you can put a flash drive in and load or save parameters about maybe your setup for the radio. You can plug in maybe a mouse dongle or wireless one and have a mouse hooked up so you can track the screen and click that way if you want. One's in the back, also keyboard you can hook up, so we have some built-in data modes. You can do that too.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, you showed me earlier, we've got this tablet. I think this is some kind of remote control, is that right? Yeah,
what we're doing here is actually built-in remote control in the K4. We actually have a client-server model inside the radio where we have the user interface is a client in the radio. That's where you touch and do everything, and then the touch screen and also the buttons. And then the server interface handles all the coordination within the radio, and that talks also down to the hardware through another interface. So that's how they talk inside. They're designed like a network inside, but you can also, so while the front panel is talking to the server, you can also come in through the Ethernet from another front panel or software application. So we can have K4 to K4. We'll show that in a second where you can control it. But this is actually just a demonstration of what we're doing. We took the user interface off of K4. This is running on a Linux window, and actually, ironically, because it's a quick tablet we could get inside, it's not a Windows 10 app, don't worry, but it's actually a Linux application running in a virtual machine window inside of Windows 10 on a Surface tablet. But we can do this for different operating systems like Linux, or that'll be probably the first we have, but also iOS and Android for it too, probably Windows.
So those things probably come later for the other platforms.
Yeah, but what's nice is you can totally control the radio from this. This one's showing just the screen part, but of course the full app would have the buttons. We have an external K-Pod that we sell for our other radios, knob and buttons, and you can actually put that into this and tune the radio and so on. So in addition to this, we might want to switch over to the K4 on the right here.
Yeah, sure. We can swing around.
These two are tied together. So the K4 on my right, or your right, I guess the right side is where you face it.
Yeah.
That's acting as another control radio. So actually both this tablet and the K4 are simultaneously controlling the real radio. They're both radios, but in the case of these guys. But this one's acting as a full radio with the receiver. We got signals coming in. but I can go over here and tune that radio.
And we see it change on the tablet and on the actual real radio.
So the data rate's not a problem for us on these, both in-house network where I'm running it right now, or over the internet if you want to do too. So it's designed for remote control from the start, without a lot of external boxes or complicated software to get it going.
Now I know on the K3 there was the option to buy it as a kit. Is that still available on the K4, or is it now factory built?
We do factory built. The initial shipments will be factory built, but we will be taking the kit version and bringing that out probably in the first part of this next year.
Okay. So if I was desperate to go to one of these, how long have I got to wait?
Well, we start the full production shipping against orders we're taking right now, or actually deposits that we're taking right now, coming up in roughly the end of this year, November, December timeframe. And then we will obviously ramp that up against our backlog. And then, of course, the K4 HD option will come in a little bit later, because that's going to be probably in the first, second quarter next year. So a lot of guys are going to buy that. If they want the high-end one, they'll buy the K4D, and then we'll ship them the K4 HD when that comes out. Yeah.
And pricing, have we got any word on pricing?
The basic pricing on the units right now is on the K4 basic radio, it's $3,999 for the radio. We have an ATU option, I think that's $399, and that's pretty much the main stuff in it. It's already got 2 receivers, it's got all the filtering options, no crystal filters to buy, so that's a big deal. The K4D adds $500 to that, so you're basically up at about $34.99 for the base radio plus the auto tuner if you want it. We're using the auto tuner is optional. Some people may be using an external amplifier or be with auto tuner external antenna switches, they don't need it. Or if they're running transverters, things like that. We also have a 10-watt version that's a little bit less, too, for people.
Okay, I was about to ask you, actually, so if you're already an Elecraft owner and you've got the amplifier, etc., I assume that will all still work with the K4?
Yeah, you can basically choose either way if you want to do that.
So if you had the KPA 500 or the KPA 1500, I presume that will work in the same way?
KPA 500 and 1500, integrate with it like it's a 500 or 1500 watt radio. You basically have everything tied together.
Perfect. Eric, if people want more information, where would they go to get that?
Just go to elecraft.com, Elecraft. We've got information on the K4 there. You can order, place deposits for it right now. We'll keep status updates, more documentation, the product folder, the product brochure, and all of the FAQs and things like that are up there. And we're updating that all the time as we have new input for it.
That's great. Eric, I know you've had a very busy day. You've had crowds around you all day. You've been stood there.
I'm still awake.
I'm so amazed you can still stand up, frankly. So, Eric, I really appreciate your time, and have a great time with the rest of the show.
Okay, thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert-free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
Well, hello, everybody. Frank here, K4FMH, presenter with the ICQ podcast team. And we are here at the opening bell for Hamvention in Xenia, Ohio, 2019. And the first place we stopped was Yaesu. We have John Kruk, the national sales manager for Yaesu USA. And as I want to ask him, I want to know, what's the Richter scale on your new product release, John?
I have no idea.
Well, it's really high because, as we say on the podcast, what you've all been waiting for is a small, long-lasting color screen, touch screen, HT from Yaesu that will succeed the FT2DR. And I believe you've got it in your hand. Tell us all about it.
The FT3 DR, obviously the biggest thing, feature for it is the TFT touch color screen display. A lot of people wanted that, with the nice part about it being an actual TFT screen and the way we've designed the colors to have white and gray on there, you can actually see it very well out in sunlight also too on there. In addition, it's kind of like we took the best features of the 70 and we took the best features of the 2 and we combined it together to what people wanted. The PTT has a side flared out button there, which a lot of people liked for if you're using gloves or if you want to be able to grab the handheld a little bit easier. We have, same things, SD card, all the accessories of the FT2 work on this radio. Everything from the battery pack, so the lithium ions, to the alkaline, to the chargers, to the speaker mics, and yes, even the camera mic.
All right, I want to interrupt. I want our audience to understand what he just said. You save money because you don't have to rebuy all your add-ons now.
Yeah, exactly. And the nice thing about it is by using the same battery pack and functionality of the FT2, you have an alkaline pack, which we don't have for the FT70, but now you have the alkaline pack for the FT3.
MCOM users unite.
And the other thing about it, kind of like along the MCOM users, we have a club monitoring feature in here. So we have 10 groups that have 5 channels in each. And the design behind that is you can program in your primary repeater, your secondary repeater, maybe some simplexes your club has, put it into that mode, and I could be operating on the main repeater and look on the screen and see that there's activities on the other channel, and boom, hit the button and automatically go to that. So then that way, if you have an event or something, or oh wait, someone might be calling me, I hit the button and do that right away. But as we say, wait, there's more. We've also integrated a Bluetooth chip into there, and with our new Bluetooth headset that will be coming out soon after, you will now be able to go ahead and ease the comfort of a Bluetooth while wearing it on your hip and do QSOs with it without having to hold it in your hand.
And that would work with Vox if you had Vox on.
Correct,
so
on there.
If your hands are just not free and you need Vox, then that will do that. And very often in the MCOM situation or some public service, you might need that. Now, does it work with other Bluetooth headphones? Let's just say you're somebody who would like to have been a truck driver in a different life, and you've got one of these big Blue Parrot Bluetooth headsets and all that. Does it work with some others?
We have not tested that out yet. I'm sure there's going to be some customer, someone who will do that, and if they do, let us know and stuff like that. Well, we know for sure that'll work with ours.
Good deal, because I know that the Blue Parrot works for your FT400, because I do some net control with that. It is a dream. Not that that's not a great one. That one, it would be one that you would wear, but if you wouldn't, you may or may not wear it all day. However, that's the point I'm trying to get at, is you got some compatibility beyond the Yaesu specific product line.
Yep.
Okay, now, so when will this be available?
We are looking at midsummer right now, and we do have an MSRP right now of $520, but once again, that is only the MSRP. We are waiting for the final FCC type acceptance, which should be coming relatively soon.
And so what it really means is us hams is that we can talk to HRO and Gigaparts and get them into a price war and kind of get that down below the MSRP, right?
Well, I'm sure they're probably already the ones starting now. I know dealers are already taking pre-orders on it already.
Mark Holmes in Atlanta HRO, I'm talking to you, friend. Anything else you want to tell us? Hey, any other? I mean, we just had a great preview from the other side of the pond of your new HF bombshell, the 101. Mm-hmm. Are you teasing us a little bit? Are you going to have anything else you're going to release here at the podcast, and you want to break it, or in the show, and you want to break it here on the podcast?
Well, what we also have set up right across the booth over there is we have our new setup to show you how not only can you use the FT101D right in front of you, great radio, number one on Sherwood Report, but now you can actually use it remotely now. So leave your radio at home, go out, do traveling. I'm sure it's great for you guys. I know it'll be great for me, and you'll be able to remotely use it with your computer and an interface and talk back to home regardless of where you're at.
I want to thank you for something, because not everybody realizes Rob Sherwood is a well-known engineer, and he's been doing this for a long time. But you know what? Bob Sherwood has a bank account like the rest of us do, and he can only test something he has in stock. So I'm sure you guys were kind enough to ship him one so he can put it on his bench.
Well, that's one of the things we actually like about with Mr. Sherwood is he does it very independently on there. He's not one that will go out and ask and beg or stuff like that or on there. He does it independently, and that's why at least me personally, I respect his reports, because I know that they're truthful, they're not ever jaded, they're not ever forced into it. So we do appreciate it from Yaesu for giving the report and the review on it.
Well, we'll have an interview with Rob Sherwood coming up on the ICQ podcast about his legacy and really setting, and I think John said it well, the independent standard in receivers in amateur radio as well as shortwave. So listen, we're here with John Kruk, National Sales Manager for Yaesu USA. We got a new handheld, and he's kind enough to let me walk away with this, but probably not outside the booth.
Not really. We will catch it.
Thanks a lot, John.
Thank you.
Hi, Mrs. B here. Please sign up to our newsletter. We won't share your data and only send you relevant podcast information. We thank you for your support. 73's Mrs. B.
I'm Bill Barnes, N3EJX. I'm here at the 2019 Dayton Hamvention in Xenia, Ohio, and I'm here with Gerald, K5 SDR with FlexRadio. Now, I'm a brand new Flex owner. I jumped in there as you ran a special at the end of March, and one of the things that you were featuring was this new software upgrade for Smart SDR, Multiplex. Can you tell our folks that are listening here about how the great features are with the new Multiplex?
Sure. First, you need to understand that all of our radios are software defined. That means that the software is the radio. most of our engineering actually goes into the software and not in the hardware, because the radio is completely reconfigurable with new software. Just recently, we came out with our version 3, which has Multiplex in it. That's what I want to talk about in a minute, but to understand that, you have to go back to version 2 when we added SmartLink, which is the capability to plug your radio into the internet, and it's simple plug-and-play remote. So I can remote my radio with a PC, with a Maestro, which is a portable display, as you can see here. I can remote with an iPad, an iPhone, or a Macintosh. They can be local or remote. I can even drive down the highway with my iPad and operate my station at home from that iPad. In fact, this radio right here is on K5 SDR Shack, which is in Austin, Texas. So those signals are actually on my antenna at home. My radio is a 6700 in a rack, and I can tune that radio, I can change bands, and operate my radio over the internet. Multiplex takes that one step further, because the radio is actually a server. It's a Linux server inside the box, and that server is connected over an Ethernet port to my router at home. And with Multiplex, I don't have a single user. I can actually have 2 users on one radio. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, the first time I ever turned Multiplex on, I was at home and I had a large monitor like the one you see here, that size, and I brought up a station in Atlanta, Georgia on half the screen. The other half was my station that you see here. And I had both stations tuned to 20 meters the same frequency, and I can listen in Atlanta and Austin simultaneously, and there were signals that were not audible at all in Atlanta that were audible on my station, and vice versa. And so that gives you the capability to have receiving stations in 2 locations. Second thing that I can do is that I can actually have a buddy, like there's a new ham that I've just gotten licensed. He's probably in his late 30s, early 40s, but he doesn't have a station. He doesn't have an antenna. He's just bought a handheld walkie-talkie, a FM, and nobody's on the repeaters. So he's saying, what do I do? Well, I can now log him into my radio. I can simultaneously be using the radio, listening and monitoring, and he can use it, and I can actually monitor if he's transmitting. So that's another capability with Multiplex. 2 operators, 1 radio is what Multiplex does for you. The next thing, that's a mentoring situation. If you think about it, you want to get more hams into the hobby, make it easier for them to get on the air. Well, he doesn't even need to have anything but his iPhone. With his iPhone or his iPad, he can just download the software off the Apple Store, give him a password, and he can be in my radio. As simple as that. No antennas, etc. So that's a great way to get people on. Also, you can take people that don't yet have their license and let them listen. Let them tune around on 20 meters and get a feel for it.
For the band.
Yeah. Another application of Multiplex is in contesting. You can take a single radio that would normally be a single operator, and you can turn it into a multi-single, multi-one, multi-single, so that you can have a Maestro plus, say, one of the radios with the display built in. Now I have 2 operators, 1 radio, and we even have an amplifier called Power Genius that you can take a single radio, single amplifier. You can have 2 operators on 1 band or 2 bands. And they can be running a contest just as simple as that. In the past, that took 2 radios, 2 amplifiers, a whole bunch of cabling and interface junk that can go wrong to make all that work.
Bandpass filters.
Bandpass filters. Bandpass filters are all built into the radio, by the way. The 6600 has all those filters. So those are just some examples. And any one of the clients, the PC, Maestro, Mac, all of those clients can share the same radio. And you can intermix any number of those clients. That's a first ever kind of capability. No other radio has that capability of having multiple users on a single radio. The other thing I can do, let's say I have a Maestro, and back here you see a 6400 without the panel on it. You can get it either way. That way I could put two Maestros on that radio. I can put a Maestro plus a PC. I can have a Maestro, and then the PC can have a big screen, big screen monitor, so you can see high resolution. They can be on totally different bands, different receivers, different bands. So a lot of new capabilities that you can open up with both SmartLink and Multiplex.
Thank you very much for the overview. I was very excited when you upgraded in the 2X series so that SmartLink actually included DACs, so I could sit at work and use FT8. And with the Multiplex, you're slowly putting pieces together through your innovation here so that we're actually going to get to the point where you may actually have clubs stationing these things in RF quiet areas and having folks be able to remote into them to be able to use them. And that's especially handy in areas where there are HOA restrictions.
Yeah, that's a perfect example for clubs. We actually have stations that are starting to set up where you can rent time on radios. In fact, there's one in Maine that's been set up with our radios. And with multi-client, which is the Multiplex, currently you can do two, but there'll be a pro version that you can do more than two users. Yeah. And so you can see how you can scale big antennas, big stations. Yeah. Very, very straightforward. You mentioned another thing, HOAs. There's another thing about some hams that have been hams for their lifetime are aging and are moving into either assisted living or retirement communities where you can't put up an antenna. But they might have a relative or a friend who still has a radio. This gives them the capability of sharing that radio, and all they need is one of the clients.
They can just get even the Maestro.
Right.
They could even just get a Maestro and be all set up in wherever they have internet access at.
That's right. So it opens up possibilities that didn't exist before for people to not have to abandon their hobby of their lifetime, and they can keep all their friends and connections over radio, but not have to have the infrastructure where they are. They can use an iPad.
Okay, thank you very much. This is available for current Flex owners who are under current recent purchases. For those that have an older Flex radio, they can just buy it through the software.
Right.
And that's a pretty straightforward process, correct?
Yeah, the Multiplex is in version 3 of Smart SDR. It works on all Flex 6000 series radios, which is the 6300, 6400, 6500, 6600, 6700. Works on all those radios. If you purchased a radio since October 1st of 2018, it already had that on it. If you purchase a refurbished radio from us, it has it included. Anyone before that can easily go to the internet, download the software, and it'll take you through the licensing process in that to upgrade it.
All right, thank you very much. And folks can find you online if they want to learn more about you at FlexRadio.com, correct?
That's right. FlexRadio.com is the place to go, and we'll be happy to help you.
Thank you very much.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
Well, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed our special episode with these interviews from Flex, Elecraft and Yaesu. So that we're one day down the show, we're midway through Hamvention, and certainly a very enjoyable show, our first time here in Dayton, and certainly the interviews which we're rushing out. Hopefully everyone will enjoy hearing about the new rigs.
Yeah, really interesting, Colin. Absolutely brilliant show so far. One of the most important things, though, is meeting some of our listeners. It's really humbling when somebody comes up to you and says, I recognise your voice. You're on a podcast. And I think all the boys are finding that it's the show's good, the products are good, the new releases we've been very lucky to see very early. So some interesting videos, Colin, coming as well.
And as you say, it's not just our orange T-shirts that are making us identifiable. It's people who are just hearing our voice and running across the hall and saying, "Hi, I recognise that voice," and that's becoming even weirder now, isn't it? You know, we can't even go anywhere without opening our mouth. So even when you're ordering coffee, people are recognising you.
It certainly is. But I've got one complaint. One complaint, and this is definite. Who gives all the other people the rights to wear orange shirts? Hey, come on. You've got these new shirts, and there's other people masquerading as pseudo ICQ people.
I don't know. We need to contact the marketing department and find out what went horribly wrong with our trademarking, I tell you. Anyway, let's wrap up this show. Special episode for you. This episode 249. We'll be back on our normal release schedule next weekend with a full review of Handvention 2019. So as always, guys, really hope you enjoy. And as I say, sign up to our usual methods, either by visiting icqpodcast.com and sign up for the newsletter so you know when the next show will be released in a week's time. Or if you'd like to see the videos of the interviews we've released this episode, visit our podcasting YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/ICQ podcast, where you can check that out from there. Well, I'll wrap up this show. We've been news 73s, and rather than getting Mrs. Butter a cup of tea, I'm going to go get you another cup of coffee. So rock on for, as I say, day 2 at Handvention. 73s all.
73.